Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Yudell, and welcome back to Study Hall for our very special Facts About the Vac Show. Tonight, I am joined by a very special guest who apparently started his day on Good Morning America, was on CNN this afternoon, and is slumming it with us tonight here on Study Hall, and that's Dr. Paul Offit from Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, who is here to teach us about vaccines, maybe a little bit about their history, and share with us a few laughs. Now, if you're joining us here for the first time, here's a little bit about Study Hall. We've been doing this show regularly since 2014 and have been lucky enough to go on to become one of the longest running comedy shows right here in the city of brotherly and sisterly love. We perform live from February 2014 until the coronavirus sent us inside back in March of 2020, where we will mostly stay until Americans realize that wearing a mask is not an act of oppression, until enough vaccines are distributed and used to get us out of this mess finally. If all goes well, we'll be celebrating with you maybe later in 2021 with sold out in-person shows here in Philly. Now, if you were an in-person Study Hall show regular and haven't joined us online yet, tonight's show may look a little bit different to you. Just a moment, I'm going to invite the cast out and our guests to have a quick chat. And after that, I'll tell a quick story. We'll answer some questions after, do a little improv, we'll rinse and repeat. And tonight, because this is our Facts About the Vac show, we'll have a special Q&A with Dr. Paul Offit, and I may be able to add a few things too. Now, one of the best things about the show is that it's just not about the laughs, but we use our expertise, the expertise that our guests bring to this stage to share knowledge on a wide variety of subjects. We learn and we laugh together. So tonight, even though we're talking about pandemics and vaccines, very serious subjects to be sure, our amazing cast find ways to lighten our mood and hone our health communication skills in the process. As I do at the start of every show, please consider thinking about how you can make a difference during these troubled times. You can think about donating to the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium here in Philadelphia, who are doing amazing work around the city of Philadelphia. You can find them online at blackdoctorsconsortium.com. So let's bring everybody out for a quick hello and a quick chat. Hi, everybody. Anybody there?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
How's everybody doing tonight on this beautiful spring Saturday?
Doing all right.
Doing all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got my second shot on Thursday, so I'm feeling great about having gotten the shot. It did kind of impact me. I think the first one didn't. This one seems to have, but yeah, I do it all again.
Are you a robot yet, Mike, or does that come later?
No, but I feel somebody's watching me.
Okay.
I feel I'm being tracked. Yeah.
By your phone.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. Has Bill Gates called yet?
Yeah, but oddly enough, not about the vaccine or tracking. It was
and
just
no more than normal.
yeah, no more than normal. Yeah.
It's just his weekly call.
Yeah.
Not on the topic sort of on the topic of the vaccine, but did anybody watch the president speak this week? Or did everybody just not watch it because it was so normal that they felt they didn't need to?
I caught the highlight reel.
I watched it.
The latter.
What, any highlights to share? Any thoughts?
It was great. It was great. It was great to hear just, cool, calm, and collected, and salient points, and knocking down trickle-down economics finally, or at least like starting the first barrage.
Mm-hmm.
Was anybody moved by sort of this amazing moment of Biden standing there flanked over each shoulder by Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi? I just thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. I watched it on MSNBC, and they kept talking about what a great picture it was, and they had to keep saying that because they just talked through the entire thing, the actual work that they were doing. They just kept talking through. Look at that great picture.
And then did they cut to a commercial where you could buy that picture for $9.99?
Yeah. Commemorative plate.
Any other reactions to that, or any other crazy things happened to you guys this week?
I got my second vaccine this week.
Yeah.
And no effects whatsoever. So now I'm worried that my immune system is no good. Rolled over like France before the war.
Well, it doesn't work that way, and Dr. Offit will be on just a little later to share some information about that, I am sure.
You're still being tracked, Rob.
Great.
Yeah, you're still being tracked.
It's not a little robot, Rob.
And I'm sure Bill Gates also called you.
Better not have.
Better not.
Bill Gates just called Rob. They're getting him ready.
Speaking of politics, here in northwestern Pennsylvania, the trailers by the highway on-ramp that sell Trump merch have reopened
Seriously.
with Trump 2024 flags. So that's
They gave it a
an
little bit of
update.
time.
You gotta have a hobby. You gotta have a hobby.
Never
Yeah,
too early to
Yeah.
get that merch.
Treason's as good of a hobby as any other.
I know, right?
Yeah. Scams will always be a cash cow.
Yeah. Did anybody see the latest Trump as sort of casino welcomer video of him standing in front of some wedding party at Mar-a-Lago yesterday?
Yeah,
It's awful.
he just
I
about
feel like-
said, "Try the fish and tip your waiter." I'm down in Wildwood, New Jersey, and if anyone knows Wildwood, New Jersey, you know the seasonal T-shirts are really a good way to look into the zeitgeist of what currently is going on in the country. And they've just recycled the shirts that they used when Obama was first elected, which was like, "How's that hopey changey thing working out for you? Don't you miss me?" And they just replaced George W. Bush with Trump and the year. Like, they didn't change the copy at all on the shirts. So it's, and also Among Us is still very popular among the shirts, the popular game Among Us.
Question, Rob.
Yes.
Is Scarface still the #1 movie?
Oh yes, very much. If you want a Bugs Bunny as Scarface T-shirt, look no further than the Wildwood New Jersey Boardwalk.
Also, question, Rob, is
Yes.
do they play Street Fighter 2 in the arcades down there?
You can
That
still
was
find an
what I
arcade with
think,
Street
yeah.
Fighter 2.
Okay.
It's also, if you want pants that let everyone know whose property your ass is, you can get those made too.
Oh, wow.
Noted.
Perfect.
Hey, bring me back a pair of those, Rob. Thanks.
Yeah, you got it. Who does your ass belong to?
The Lord.
You got it. Can do.
On that note, let's bring out Dr. Offit for a minute, maybe a few questions before we jump into our first lecture for the night. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Good.
Just like CNN, right?
Just like. Oh boy. How are you?
I'm good. And by the way, thank you. There's been a lot of scientific talks, and they always follow songs by Alice Cooper, Sam Cooke, and then Zach's song from School of Rock. So thank you for making me feel right at home.
Any quick questions for Dr. Offit before we jump into a lecture? Dr. Offit, anything you want to share about, your state of mind these days and what the year's been like for you?
Well, I mean, it's been remarkable. I mean, unless you're 130 years old, you've never experienced a pandemic like this. I mean, the 1918-1919 pandemic killed also about 50 million people. Was actually worse than this, but we had no vaccine. We didn't really know what viruses were for the most part. But this is just amazing. And the other thing that's amazing, we had this virus in hand in January 2020. We sequenced the virus in January 2020. I think if you asked 1,000 scientists on the face of the planet, do you think in 11 months we're going to have 2 large clinical trials proving that we have this novel strategy to make a vaccine that works amazingly well? I don't think anybody would have thought it would happen. So I think this is going to go down as a miraculous. It's not really miraculous because you can explain it by the laws of nature, but it is an amazing event that occurred last year. So we are all part of that.
Any questions from the cast before we jump into some stories?
Okay, I can answer the question. The thing that was raised earlier by Rob, I guess, who was that he didn't have an immune response or didn't have symptoms. This is also the first time this has ever happened in history where people complain that they don't have side effects after getting the vaccine. It's like, finally, the immune response is getting the recognition it deserves. When you're infected or when you're vaccinated, your immune system makes certain proteins called cytokines that have side effects like fever, fatigue, muscle ache, joint ache, etc. And that's like finally the immune system is getting its due. And I think the reason it is I think they hired the public relations team that has previously been working for Mother Nature. Because I don't know why the word natural is a good thing is beyond me. She has been trying to kill us ever since we crawled out of ocean onto land. But thank goodness the immune system is getting its due.
I bet you guys didn't realize that, such an esteemed physician and inventor of great vaccines would also be hilarious. So
It's kind of unfair.
And so anti-nature.
Leave some for us.
Paul may be jumping in on some of the improv tonight. We'll see how it goes. Mike, should we jump into a story and kick this off? Sound good? All right. So I'm going to jump into a story about the smallpox vaccine, which was the first vaccine invented. Paul, you can turn your camera off for a few minutes and take a break. Go watch Good Morning America again. All right. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. I haven't done slides on this show in a long time, but what the heck? Okay, tonight's quick story about the history of vaccines is called James Phipps Got Vaccinated, So You Could Too. And the little asterisk says, even if it was horrifically unethical by today's standards, it was not necessarily unethical by the standards of the late 18th and early 19th century. So let's see, here we go. This is an electron microscope image of the smallpox vaccine, known as variola major. There are other forms of variola minor, variola intermedius. The virus has no animal reservoir, no effective treatment. As I said, less lethal forms of the virus have also been identified. Estimated to have caused about 300 million deaths worldwide in the 20th century. That is a very large number. And the disease, if you get it, has about a 15 to 50% mortality rate. It is an awful course. You start getting these pustules all over your body. They also attack you internally, and you can die. If you don't die from smallpox, when you recover, you are immune from getting the disease again. Now, I want to just run you through a few images. This is from a medical collection from the early part of the 20th century, and this was a variola minor outbreak in the United States. And this gentleman was documented throughout the outbreak of his smallpox. And you can see him. This is early in on the 3rd day. We skip to the 6th day. You can see the pustules erupting all over his face. The 8th day, the 12th day, the 16th day. And then after his recovery, you could see his face is marked with scars. So there is history to preventing smallpox. And before there was anything called a vaccine, there was a process known as inoculation or variolation. And this, I'll describe the process first and then give some of its history. Pus or powdered scabs from an infected individual were deliberately inserted into an inoculee's arm, causing smallpox. But the artificially induced infection, meaning if you gave somebody smallpox through this process, the infection was generally milder. And instead of a 15 to 50% mortality rate, it was only between 1% and 3%. So in the days when smallpox outbreaks would ravage nations, this was a risk that people made the calculation to take. Not all people, but many people in fact did. One of the problems was that when you were inoculated, you were briefly infectious until the scabs went away. And then, of course, you would have lifelong immunity from smallpox. And that was the benefit of going through this somewhat dangerous procedure. But the alternative was much worse. And we know that it gave lifelong immunity. Inoculation is believed to have been used as long ago as 3,000 years ago in India. Also used in Asia and Africa before its introduction into Europe, which happened in the early part of the 18th century. the Italian physician, Dr. Emanuele Timoni, sends an account of smallpox inoculation used in Constantinople to colleagues in London who presented it before the Royal Society. It was introduced into North America, into the American colonies in 1706. The Reverend Cotton Mather of Boston learns about inoculation from Onesimus, an enslaved African man. Benjamin Franklin, pictured here, wrote about losing a son to smallpox, whose grave in Philadelphia at the Christ Church burial ground at 5th and Race, I believe it is. And he wrote, in 1736, I lost one of my sons, a fine boy of 4 years old, by the smallpox taken in the common way. I long regretted bitterly and still regret that I had not given it to him by inoculation. This I mention for the sake of parents who omit that operation on the supposition they should never forgive themselves if a child died under it. My example showing that the regret may be the same either way and that therefore the safer should be chosen. Clearly a rationale that grew out of a situation where the risk was so much greater than risks we face today from vaccines, yet people took those risks because they clearly understood what the alternative meant. So in the late 18th century, there are some observations beginning in the 1770s about that milkmaids who were milking cows and who contracted cowpox, which it turns out is a virus related to smallpox, but is not generally is not deadly to humans, produces pustules on the hands of milkmaids, and those milkmaids were they didn't get smallpox. So people start making an association, and Edward Jenner comes along, British physician in the 1890s, and hypothesizes that, again, milkmaids who contracted cowpox did not get smallpox because there was something about that illness that prevented them from getting smallpox. So he tests his hypothesis on the 8-year-old son. Here's where the ethics are particularly shady by today's standards. Again, those standards we can argue about, but certainly challenging by our own lens in the 21st century. And on May 14th, 1796, he inoculates James Phipps, an 8-year-old who's the son of a laborer who works for Jenner, with cowpox virus taken from a pustule on the hand of Sarah Nelms, a milkmaid infected with cowpox. A little over a month later, Jenner then inoculates or variolates young James Phipps with smallpox with no effect. Jenner would later intentionally again infect Phipps with smallpox to show that, again, this was a lasting effect, and to no effect. And here is an image of young Mr. Phipps, who later in his life became close with Dr. Jenner. Dr. Jenner gave him a house to live in without charging him any rent or making him pay for it. It was basically his house. And today that house is the Jenner Museum in England. Here's the presentation that he gave in front of the Royal Society in 1798 about his discovery. Now, you may not be shocked to learn that anti-vaccinationists were quick to develop, people were quick to develop feelings about this vaccine, this new technology, for a variety of reasons that we can talk about in a moment if you'd like. And here's an image of an old political cartoon from the early part of the 19th century in England with Jenner vaccinating someone, and you can see people changing into cows. So there was this concern that material from a different species injected into humans would cause harm in some way. Now, it isn't such a jump to the way that contemporary anti-vaccinationists think. Here's Jenny McCarthy, who's blamed her child's autism on her son, although it was not clear that her child ever had autism. Here's another image about vaccines harming babies. And here's a medical professional with scabs or pustules on their hands, injecting screaming, terrified children with some kind of vaccine. And the little chart there shows an increase in deaths in autism from vaccines, which of course is false. And then, as Dr. Offit was chatting with us earlier, Joe Rogan, whose show should be called Fearmonger Factor, was walking back anti-vaccination comments from earlier this week, claiming that young people should not get vaccinated because they didn't need it. And in his defense, he said, "I'm not a doctor. I'm an effing moron. I am not a respected source of information, even for me. But I at least try to be honest about what I'm saying. I have no idea what that means, but here we are with people capitalizing on some of the fear around the current situation." So I will stop there.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
This might be too big of a question. I don't know if it can be explained in a couple sentences. I do not I don't understand how when you're talking about the smallpox, you getting infected by being around it is a higher mortality rate than any vaccine, and then you get the vaccine and it's a lower. I don't understand that. Is there a
Why don't we call Dr. Offit to explain a little of the biology behind that? Paul, do you mind jumping out for a second?
Sure.
I believe it. I don't understand it.
So there are different. So we're mammals. There are pox viruses that affect a variety of mammals. There's horse pox, there's cow pox, there's monkey pox, there's mouse pox, and there's human smallpox. As a general rule, species barriers are fairly high, or said another way, horse pox will cause disease in horses, but not people, and vice versa. So that's essentially what Jenner took advantage of. He took advantage of those species barriers. He inoculated people with what was felt to be a cowpox virus to protect them against a related human smallpox. But what Franklin was talking about, what Ben Franklin was talking about, this variolation, that's different. What he did there is he took normal human smallpox and let it sort of dry out into a crust, which at some level weakened it. And then you could inoculate that into the blood vessels. Now, it was not a safe vaccine. I mean, that vaccine could kill you, but you were because smallpox was common, because smallpox was much more likely to kill you, this had a lesser chance of killing you. And that's what he said at the end of that quote that Mike showed, which is that pick the safer choice. But there was no risk-free choice. There was just a choice to take a different and more serious risk.
Great.
I have a question.
Other questions? Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. So it's in what I'm reading, it's kind of like we're trying to get the various sources are saying like between 75% and 90% either inoculation by vaccine or antibodies through actually getting and surviving COVID-19. That's where herd immunity kind of lies in that 75 to 90%. Is one more valuable than the other? Can we count cases of antibodies obtained through getting the virus in the same way that we can count antibodies through vaccination? Like, do we have a chance to hit herd immunity is the broader question, I suppose.
Right. So the definition of herd immunity is that a significant or enough of the population is immune that makes it difficult for the virus to be spread from one person to the other. Remembering that a lot of people in this country can't be vaccinated because they're getting chemotherapy for their cancer or a variety of other reasons. So they depend on the herd to protect them. You will have a protective immune response if you are either naturally infected or vaccinated, either. But we do need, the way that you figure out what percentage of the population needs to be vaccinated is there's actually a formula for this, but it's based on two things. One, the contagiousness of the virus, and two, the effectiveness of the vaccine. The current virus that's spreading is a little more contagious. That so-called B117 UK variant is more contagious. So that's sort of upped the percent of the population that needs to be vaccinated. You need to have about 80% of the population vaccinated. Right now, you have about 40% or so, 35 to 40% that are fully vaccinated. So about 25 to 30% fully vaccinated. We're on the way to 40%. And then there's they say 30 million people have been infected with this virus, but that's off by a factor of 3, looking at antibody surveillance studies. So that's probably more like 100 million people who've been naturally infected at a price of 570,000 deaths. But so you probably are at about 50% now of the population immune from either natural infection or immunization, probably.
Mhm.
So you need to vaccinate another 100 million or 120 million. What worries me is that you're starting to see a decline in the number of people who are getting vaccinated. So what's going to happen over the summer is you're going to find out the percentage of the population in the United States that's choosing not to vaccinate. And then we're going to just have to decide what we want to do about it. Do we want to let people make that choice? I mean, I can't stand it when people say this is me expressing my freedom. You are not free to catch and transmit a potentially fatal infection. So we'll see how this happens. You're already starting to see pushback, right? There are universities and colleges that are saying, if you want to come, get vaccinated. There are bars and restaurants that are now starting to ask their employees to get vaccinated. So our hospital this week will decide whether or not to mandate this vaccine for our healthcare workers, because we think that if you're working around a vulnerable population of hospitalized children, that's your responsibility. So that's the fight that's going to happen this summer, because it's a winter virus. If we don't get to 80% population immunity by fall, you're going to see this virus surge again next winter. Summer, everybody's going to get relaxed because it's basically a winter virus. I mean, look, the virus came in, one last thing. The virus came in March, started killing people at the beginning of March, right? 1,000 deaths a day, 2,000 deaths a day, 2,500 deaths a day. Then it started to decline. So you would have hundreds of deaths a day. Last summer, when the population was fully susceptible, when we didn't have a vaccine, then it hit November. 2,000 deaths a day, 3,000 deaths a day, 4,000 deaths a day. Then it started to come down again, in part because of the weather, also in part because of the vaccines, because of population immunity. But hit next winter with less than 80% population immunity, you're going to see this virus surge again.
No thanks.
Whoa. Should we jump to some improv or one more question, Mike?
Let's jump into the first improv set. So for those watching for the first time, we're going to do an improv set. Everybody's going to turn off their cameras. And they're going to do some short scenes, which I will be calling, I'll call scene. And that is the end of a scene and the beginning of a new one. Have fun, everybody.
Okay, sweetie, listen, give me your toy. Brian, give me your toy. And you too, Sarah, give me your toys.
I like it. I'm not going to give it to Ed.
Listen, kids, it is 100% certain that when you get older, you will have your heart broken. So I'm inoculating you to that by taking your toys now, and I'm going to smash them. It's a protective
really
measure. Sarah, give me your toys.
Okay, here's my favorite Barbie.
Yes, your favorite Barbie. So just I want you to.
Disco Barbie.
I know Disco Barbie is sassy and in charge.
No, I love her.
I'm going to destroy her with this hammer. Okay. I want you to feel this feeling because it's just, it's better for you this way. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to trust you because you're my dad. And I don't know any better than that. So.
Okay. Now, Brian, if you can see through your tears, I want you to just watch this also.
And she feels the pain.
Okay. All right. And that's it. That's it. So now, Brian, give me your favorite toy as well. It's important that you both go.
And now I won't get heartbroken when I'm older.
No, you will. The effects will be less likely to injure you permanently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This feels really painful.
Yeah, the more I'm doing this, the more abusive it feels to me as well. But I want you to understand that this is a risk that I was willing to take now, because if I saw you in my elder years with your heart broken, I would have regrets that I hadn't done this now. Brian, give me your toy.
Brian, give him the toy. We have to do it.
This is my Stretch Armstrong, and I don't think you can smash him with a hammer because he's so stretchy.
Give him to me, Brian. All right. Listen, I'm going to light him on fire. All right.
I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right to me. It's like, I know everyone seems so happy, but like, it's just not sitting right with me.
Tell me more. I'm all ears.
Well, it's like, I see all these happy people and they're posting all this stuff online and like they're getting their lives back, but like, I just don't like TikTok. I just can't get into it. It's like it's Vine, but it's not Vine, and I'm not a believer.
Hey, you know, you gotta ease into it, you know? Like, I'm not about to like say you have to get TikTok, that you have to be into TikTok, but like, why don't you like look at videos that you like? Like, you love labradoodles. Why, I'm sure there are a ton of videos of labradoodles, and then slowly but surely you'll get used to it, and bada bing bada boom, you're like into TikTok.
Sure. It's just that there's so many places I can watch labradoodle videos.
Are there
There's
though?
there's our
Okay.
labradoodle on Reddit. There's labradoodles on YouTube. There's doodleaday.org. I don't have a lack of labradoodle videos, and it's just everyone seems like it's like, oh, Dad, you gotta get TikTok. All our friends are getting TikTok. You can't go outside unless you have TikTok. You can't fly on a plane anymore unless you have TikTok. I just feel like it's a lot of pressure, and I just don't like pressure.
Sure, but it definitely seems like your life would be better if you just got TikTok.
No, I get that. Anyway, sorry. Let me just, before I go any further, I'll have double guac, and let me get queso, and can you double wrap it? Can you double wrap it? Because I never finished the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Kelly, I'm the manager. Kelly, did you ask this man for his TikTok verification before you took his order?
No, he just started talking to me about how much he doesn't like or want TikTok.
Sir, I am sorry, but for you to have come into this restaurant and sit down and then to order food.
Am I to understand that Chipotle is now forcing people's hand vis-a-vis TikTok?
We want everyone to be happy.
Kids, get in here.
What?
Yes.
Junior, Jackie, James, I think your mother is turning into a cow.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes. So
Free milk.
No, not
What
even
the hell,
cow.
Jackie?
Hell yeah.
James.
No.
Hell yeah, this is awesome.
No, you don't want this. You want to tell the judge that you're gonna spend the summer with me.
Okay,
But
Mom's
this is
lawyer
unlimited
said we're
milk,
not supposed to
Dad.
have conversations like this with you prior to the hearing. But is Mom really going to be a cow?
Yes, your mother's in danger. You have to listen to me.
I mean, to be fair, like I gotta at least see whose burgers are better first, right?
Ah, man.
Yeah.
You know I can't cook.
That's a notch off of
Yeah,
your
I'm making
name.
a pros and con list. You
Yep.
too?
I'm
Yeah.
making it. That's a con for Dad.
Oh.
I
We're
can't.
gonna eat Mom? I'm confused.
Oh no! You're taking it too far. Taking it too far.
I didn't think of that.
I just figured that if I told you that your mother is turning into a cow, that you wouldn't want to stay with your mother over the summertime.
I don't think you understand how much I love milk, Dad.
Oh,
Scene.
no.
The con.
Son, now I need you to listen to me. I know you're upset, and I know you love it here on the farm, but I need you to go with this fancy scientist, and you're going to have a better life. He's going to inoculate you against all sorts of experimental things, and it's going to be better for you. And just ask your mother.
Dad, I want to ride my bike, Dad. I got my cool balance bike. It's
We're going to have to put old Rosebud in the shed.
You can ride over that rock right now. We were going to go down to the pond, Dad.
I'm sorry, son. It's just this opportunity came along. A man in a fancy lab coat knocked at the door and said, I need a child to stick needles into.
Young man,
And we're obliged.
if I may interject, I want you to know that these are all highly experimental things that I will be inoculating you against using highly experimental measures. But if you survive, in 45 years, I will give you a house that you can live in, and I will not charge you any rent. And after you die, you may make it a museum to me. How does
Do I
that
have-
sound?
It sounds all right if I could bring my bike with me, but I'm not
Old
calling
Ro-
you Uncle Herman. Okay? I'm not calling you Uncle Herman. Dad, do I have to call this man Uncle Herman?
I'm
Look at
sorry,
what
son. You're gonna have to do whatever he tells you.
Oh.
look what-
Sir, Uncle Herman, do you have a pond down at your place and a cool ramp where I could do a big jump, and I might go too far, but I might just say I'll try again, and then I'll land and it'll be really cool, and eventually if I get really good at it, you'll put my pedals back on and we'll be able to go feed the ducks.
Listen, I do have a pond, and the house that I will bequeath unto you will also have a pond. But your legs are going to be braced for probably 8 to 12 months. So you won't be able to ride your bike.
Sarah, jump in.
Oh. That took a turn. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to introduce our guest, Dr. Paul Offit, who is the director of the Vaccine Education Center and an attending physician in the Division of Infectious Diseases at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, an amazing, amazing place. He's the recipient of many awards for his work and has published more than 150 scientific papers in areas of rotavirus, including in areas of rotavirus-specific immune responses and vaccine safety. He's also the co-inventor of the landmark rotavirus vaccine, recommended for universal use in infants by the CDC, and a current member of the FDA's Vaccine Advisory Committee. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great, great. So I'm going to go away for a few minutes and let you talk a little bit about vaccines. Thanks.
Okay. So I guess on the theme of this vaccine, of the COVID vaccine, I'll bring up two issues. The ones that come up the most. The first is that there are a number of young women who are choosing not to get this vaccine. The reason they're making that choice is because the anti-vaccine groups have put out the notion that this vaccine affects fertility. This was born of a letter that was written to something called the European Medicines Agency, which is like Europe's equivalent of the Food and Drug Administration, by two researchers who claimed falsely that the protein, the viral protein to which you make antibodies, the so-called SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, mimicked a protein on placental cells that was called syncytin-1. And therefore, if you were inoculated with this vaccine, or in theory, if you were naturally infected, that you would make antibodies not only to the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, but also to this protein on placental cells, which would then cause a problem with the placenta and render you infertile. Well, first of all, that wasn't true. Those two proteins aren't similar. It's like saying you and I have the same telephone number because they both have the number 5 in it. So that was wrong. Antibodies directed against SARS-CoV-2 don't react to this protein, so that was wrong. Secondly, you can argue that a study was done to see whether or not it did affect fertility, because the two so-called phase 3 studies that were done by Pfizer and Moderna, when those studies were done, the researchers excluded people who were pregnant initially, and then asked people not to get pregnant during the study. But as Jeff Goldblum said in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. So there were 36 pregnancies during those two trials. And remember, it was a placebo-controlled trial. So in theory, if this vaccine affected fertility, then all of the pregnancies should have been in the placebo group, right, that weren't getting the vaccine. But that wasn't true. It was basically 18 and 18. 18 pregnancies in the vaccine group, 18 pregnancies in the placebo group. So therefore, the vaccine didn't enhance pregnancy, your chance of getting pregnant, nor did it affect negatively your chance of getting pregnant. Also, like 100 million people have been infected with this virus in the country. So where you're also making antibodies against this SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. So if that's true, then what's happened to the fertility rate between 2019 and 2020? And the answer is it increased. So that doesn't support it either. So it's just false, but it's just impossible to sort of get this out of people's heads. It's like once you've scared people, it's hard to unscare them. It's hard to unring the bell, right? It's that old line from Jonathan Swift, falsehood flies and truth comes limping after. And that's what's happened here. It's just painful because, people need this vaccine, including young women. So that's number one. Number two, very quickly, this is my last point, is that this is a novel vaccine strategy. It's the first time in history, really, in this country or in this world, really, that we've used a genetic vaccine. In other words, if you want people to make antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, right, which will then prevent the virus from binding to cells, we do several things. We give whole killed virus, like the polio vaccine, which is a form of giving the protein. Or we just give the protein itself, like the hepatitis B vaccine or the human papillomavirus vaccine. Or we give a live weakened form of the virus, like the measles or mumps or German measles vaccine. But you give the protein, you give the viral protein, not here. What you're doing here is you're giving the gene that codes for the protein. So your body makes the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, and that scares people. The minute they hear the term genetic vaccine, they think you're going to alter my DNA. That's not possible. And I'll just finish with this. The messenger RNA vaccines, for example, of Pfizer and Moderna, you have about 200,000 copies of messenger RNA in every cell of your body. So it's not like it's a novel thing. And they make their protein and then break down after a couple of days. That happens here too. The messenger RNA can't get into the nucleus where the DNA is because it doesn't have a nuclear access signal. It can't get in. Even if it got in, it's messenger RNA. It's not DNA. So it would have to be reverse transcribed to DNA, which it can't do because it doesn't have that enzyme. And even if it was, it can't integrate into DNA because it doesn't have the enzyme integrated. So it's not possible. It's not possible. I mean, it's not like the chances are small. The chances are zero. You have a better chance of getting this vaccine and becoming Spider-Man or developing X-ray vision than you would have of it altering your DNA. Although I never understood why when people are worried about it's altering your DNA, they never think it could be like for the good. But in any case, just so that we never leave the science here, you become Spider-Man when you're bitten by a radioactive spider. Okay, I'll stop right there. Thanks for your attention.
Thanks, Paul. And has
Paul?
Marvel Comics been in touch at all with you for pitching stories about the next Marvel superhero? No, okay. Any questions, guys?
Have Paul replace Stan Lee as the cameo in all the Marvel movies.
Yeah. That was amazing. I saw people saying, I didn't know if this is looped in with the fertility thing. I saw people saying it like had effects on women's like menstrual cycles. Is that looped in with the fertility that they're talking about?
I think we're not quite. Where that comes from is both the AstraZeneca vaccine and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine very rarely, and by rarely, I mean like 1 per million people, can have a lowering of the platelet count. The so-called platelets help your blood clot. That's called thrombocytopenia. And so if you have a lowered platelet count, during menstruation, you could, bleed excessively, et cetera. So that's I think that's where that all comes from.
Got you.
We're kind of living in an era where there's people who just won't believe anything, no matter the evidence. How do you combat against that as a healthcare professional? How do you educate someone who kind of refuses to be educated to a certain point?
You don't.
Okay.
I mean, here's what I would say. I think you can divide this sort of anti-vaccine sentiment, if you will, into two categories. I think the first is the vaccine skeptic. Fair enough. I think you should be skeptical of anything you put into your body. I think everybody who sits on the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee, where I'm a voting member, we're all skeptics. I mean, we want to see the data. Prove to me that this vaccine is safe. Prove to me that this vaccine is effective, because otherwise I'm not going to recommend it's in this case approval under emergency use authorization unless I would take it myself or give it to my family members. Show me the data. Fair enough. And so I think that group is convincible. And you can see it in the polls. I mean, in September, 30% of people said they would get a vaccine. Then 2 months later, or in December, when there were more data, it was 40%. Now, mostly it's about 70%. But 30% of people say they still don't want to get the vaccine. But I would say that when we went from 30% to 70%, those were the skeptics. I think the remaining group are what I would call the cynics. I mean, they don't trust the government. They don't trust pharmaceutical companies. They don't trust the medical community. So I think there is no convincing them. I can tell in 30 seconds when somebody calls me, whether or not I have any chance to convince them. And if I don't, I just get off the phone. I mean, what's the point? So then what do you do? Then do you compel them? I mean, which is what we do. I mean, that's where the mandates were born.
All right, well, let's pick that back up in a few minutes. We talk more generally about the vaccine, but let's go to a few minutes of improv. Thank you, Paul.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. Have fun, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Sarah, jump in. Hey, thanks for meeting me here. This relationship has been like so rewarding, and we've been together for 5-6 years now, and
Mhm.
I just feel like we've kind of
You don't
grown
know
into.
exactly how long. It's been 5 and 7 months. Anyway, go on.
Oh, okay.
In 3 days.
So maybe that brings me to my broader point. I just don't know that. I think we've grown apart, and I think we should break up. I know this is going to break your heart, and I was dreading this, but
I've been ready for this.
What?
And I have brought my hammer.
Okay,
Put your hand out.
No.
You're a piano
Absolute-
player. You're a piano player. You love your hands, right?
Yes,
Put your
I
hand
use
out.
them. I'm not going to do that.
Ah!
Get away. The hell? The table was of glass.
I'm immune.
Kids, get in here.
What?
Again,
I have
not
something
again.
to tell you. This time it's the truth.
Oh no.
You know that really, really cool superhero who was bit by a radioactive cow and has been
Yeah,
saving
Cowman?
everybody? No, fool. I'm talking about Mooper Woman.
Oh.
It's your mother.
Is that our mom?
Yes, it's your mother. Your mother's a superhero.
I'm definitely
Moopa
saying
Woman
her.
is our mom?
Awesome.
Yep.
That goes. That's in the pro.
Incredible.
That's in the
The
pro column.
Pro.
That's like a
We're
lot
living
of
here
pro.
forever.
Yeah, I guess I'll see you. I guess I'll see you in 2 years.
Maybe.
Yeah,
You'll
If
never
we-
come over my house.
Perhaps. I don't
If
know.
we're here, we'll kind of play it by ear, I guess. Do you
I'm
have any
hoping-
superpowers?
But Mr. Carmichael, I know you wanted me to like come to your classroom or whatever, and you were going to try to like teach me math, but I want you to know that I'm a cynic and I refuse to be educated. So,
I'm sorry. How are you cynical about mathematics?
let's just say that I'm cynical about your motivation for trying to cram that information into my head, Mr. Carmichael. You seem kind of lonely, and I feel like you're just trying to make any bridge to connect with any human around you. So, I refuse to be educated.
I mean, I'm married. I have children. I've been teaching math for 45 years. I've never had anyone accuse me of having ulterior motives.
I feel like ulterior would mean that they were like kind of beneath the surface, you know, like even just the way you're talking to me now, you're like trying to keep me in this conversation, trying to like keep me in your classroom, like all this math information on the walls, right? Like it's right out in the open, Mr. Carmichael, what you're trying to do. And I want you to know that I refuse to be educated.
Listen, Calvin, first of all, put down the surfboard, okay? And put on your shirt.
All right. Listen, I don't see a no. I put my flip-flops on to come in here, Mr. Carmichael, and I want you to know my shirt's got to be off and my board's got to be greased so that I can get
Scene.
into those.
One more.
So yeah, all of us, every single one of us, none of us got pregnant for this study. That's great for us. Good job, everyone.
You seem
What?
pregnant.
I just gained some weight. Okay. I ate a lot
Okay.
of donuts. So how dare you
Yeah.
never ask a woman if they're
Rude.
pregnant?
Rude.
Yeah, rude. Thank
So
you.
rude. Disrespectful.
Thank
You're welcome. I just have gas like a bitch.
We
Tag
signed
out
up-
everyone but Sarah. Ma'am, I can't let you ride this roller coaster.
Why?
You're clearly pregnant, about 9 months by my view.
Oh, you're gonna call me pregnant. You're gonna
Tag
say
out, Rob.
that.
Ma'am, you're aware this is a stomach punching competition?
Yeah.
I just don't think it would be morally right for me to allow you to enter.
My
Hey,
body
Rob,
is
hey,
none
Rob,
of your
Rob.
business.
She verified her TikTok, so she's good to go.
Yeah.
Oh, well, right this way.
I can do the dances.
Scene.
All right, good stuff. All right, Mike, you were gonna take over and put up some questions for Paul and maybe for me.
Yes, Paul and Michael, you can keep your video on. Everybody else, and including me, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to share my screen with some questions that might still be on the table. And if they're off the table, feel free to pull them back on if you have more to say. All right, share the screen. I don't trust a vaccine that was created in a few months. I'll wait until the bugs are worked out.
Right. So here's what I would say. The first of all, the messenger RNA technology for the first two vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, has been worked on for 20 years. So it's not like it's we just made it up. Secondly, I'm on the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee. When they presented those data to us, it was approved through emergency use authorization, which I think scares people and reasonably scares people, because you just saw hydroxychloroquine being approved through emergency use authorization under the Trump administration for a product that didn't work to either treat or prevent COVID-19, and then that EUA was quickly withdrawn. So I can see that. But the two trials, just taking the first two trials, the 30,000 person trial of Moderna or the 44,000 person trial of Pfizer, those are the size of any typical pediatric or adult vaccine trial. So the size of the trials weren't any different. Secondly, the length of follow-up for safety wasn't any different than for any pediatric or adult trial, which is 2 months after the last dose. So, which is all the serious safety issues that occurred after a vaccine have occurred within 6 weeks of a dose. So that was no different. The only real difference between this product, meaning approving it through EUA as compared to a licensed product, was the length of follow-up for efficacy. So you knew it was 95% effective. These first two vaccines were 95% effective for a few months. You didn't know whether it was going to be 95% effective for a year or 2 years or 3 years. You didn't know that. So you could have done a 3-year study or a 4-year study before you release those vaccines. But 500,000 people died last year. So you're really not going to do that study. You're going to assume that if it's effective for 3 months, that it's likely to be effective for a year. And frankly, without getting into too much of the weeds here, but the cellular immune response, the so-called T cell responses that were induced by the second dose of those mRNA vaccines, predicts long-term immunity. I think we're going to have, these vaccines will be effective for a few years as a guess. So, and I can understand if people came to me and said, look, the vaccine was tested in 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 30,000 people. That's not 10 million people. And I want to make sure it doesn't have a rare side effect, because I'm not helpless here. I can still wear a mask. I can still physically distance. I can still protect myself. It's a novel technology. Let me wait. I mean, Maurice Hilleman, who I think is the father of modern vaccines, having invented or done the development on 9 of the 14 vaccines we currently give to children, said it best, quote, "I never breathe a sigh of relief until the first 3 million doses are out there." Okay, 200 million doses of these mRNA vaccines are out there. It doesn't have a rare side effect. You know that the virus is common. You know that the virus can kill 5,000 out of every million people that's affected. You know that it causes long-term problems because it's a vasculitis virus. This is a virus that causes inflammation of your blood vessels. I mean, it was billed coming out of China as a winter respiratory virus like flu. Wrong. This is a virus that causes inflammation of your blood vessels. I was on service last week at Children's Hospital Philadelphia. That's what we see. So this is easy. Get this vaccine, because you've got two choices, and it's going to be get the vaccine or get the disease. And the vaccine is always the better choice.
Fair enough. Which vaccine should I get? Do I even have a choice?
Now you do. I mean, now there's enough vaccine out there where you have a choice. I mean, I can't, I'm on the committee, so I can't really express a preference. I mean, they both work. They both, I think, are going to induce long-term.
They're all your favorite.
I think that some people could reasonably say, look, for especially young women under 50, there is this increased risk, albeit exceedingly small, of 1 in a million having a severe blood clot. Therefore, I choose to get the mRNA vaccine. That's a reasonable choice. But they certainly all work, and I think they're all going to induce relatively long-lived immunity. But we'll see.
Okay. I heard 5G activates the vaccine. Do I need to live close to a 5G tower to get full protection?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
That'll be playing on loop tomorrow somewhere on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah, right. Why 2 shots? Can't I just get more the first time?
Yeah, actually, the one thing that worries me here is that when we had limited vaccine, there was a lot of people on TV were saying, just get as much first dose out there as you can. You need that second dose of mRNA containing vaccine, because with that second dose, you get an antibody response that's 10-fold higher than the first, and you get so-called cellular immunity, which predicts longer-term protection. I worry now, there was a New York Times article saying that about 8% of people have not come back for their second shot. And in some states, it's more than 10%. You need to get back for that second shot. And you never need to start over again. Even if 2 months or 3 months or 4 months have gone by, you can just pick up where you left off and get that second shot, but you need 2 shots of the mRNA vaccine.
Okay, great, thank you.
What's the deal with the second shot? Why am I hearing that has more side effects?
It does have more side effects, I mean, especially because you're getting a booster response. So therefore you get a more vigorous response with that second dose, especially if you're less than 65.
Okay. If I get the vaccine, am I contagious? If so, for how long? I have things to do.
No, it's not a live viral vaccine. You just make one protein of the virus, and then your body makes the antibody response to one protein of the virus. You're not the vaccine doesn't make you contagious. The other way to say this is, if you've gotten the vaccine, does that protect you against asymptomatic infection where you can still be shedding virus? And actually, it looks like to some extent, to a large extent, it does. So, this is about as close to a perfect vaccine as you can imagine. I mean, it's 95% effective. It's 95% effective against mild, moderate, or severe disease. It's 95% effective in people over 65 years of age. It's 95% in people who have like all these comorbidities that put them at risk. And it appears to be safe when in now more than like 100 million people. I don't know what people want from a vaccine. This is about as good as it gets. Tony Fauci last summer said he was hopeful it could be 70% effective. We were told in the FDA committee, if it was more than 50% effective, we would have approved it. It's 95% effective. I just don't know what people want for these vaccines.
If I get all the vaccines, will I become super immune?
Yes, you'll never have to worry about getting another infection ever again for the rest of
Nice. If you got the vaccine, why do I need to get the vaccine?
Right, because that protects you, and it also protects those with whom you come in contact. I mean, that's actually, when people, the people have asked me the question, what's the worst thing an anti-vaccine person can say? To me, the worst thing they can say is, what do you care what I do? You're vaccinated, which makes 2 incorrect assumptions. First of all, that all people can get vaccinated, which isn't true, because there are a number of people who are getting cancer chemotherapies, et cetera. They can't be vaccinated. They depend on the herd to protect them. And 2, that vaccines are 100% effective, which is true of no vaccine. And, that's true here too. You are very, very unlikely to get sick if you've gotten these vaccines, but it's not 100% effective. I mean, you already, you do see breakthrough cases, even occasionally breakthrough hospitalization.
Yeah, I would just echo that point. As a cancer survivor who spent a year in chemo 15 years ago, during that window, I could not have been vaccinated and would have been at high risk. And I think people forget that when they make a choice not to vaccinate, they are putting people like me then, or people who are going through those kinds of situations now at high risk.
This was already touched on. Is Bill Gates going to be tracking me if I get the vaccine? Is there a vaccine without a microchip included to avoid said tracking? I think we covered that.
I think this is it's amazing. It is, first of all, I think the microchip just does not fit through the needle. So I don't even get that part of it. But, it amazes me that normally this is laughable. Normally this is like a joke, right? And yet still, I have to answer these questions occasionally. I mean, on podcasts that are medical podcasts or webinars and stuff, I actually answer these questions. It's remarkable to me. I mean, to me, the shining moment came when Donald Trump last year, got up with Deborah Burke sitting there and Fauci sitting there and talked about, ingesting bleach and, shining UV lights into difficult places in your body. It was like a comedy skit with like a poorly prepared substitute science teacher. That's sort of the way it came off,
And dangerous too.
How long am I protected after I am fully vaccinated?
Time will tell. I mean, certainly we know that for now, the most recent effectiveness data was, for people starting to get vaccinated in December, that they were protected for at least 4 months. I think the studies were done starting in July. So I think that by this summer, you probably will start to get data on whether it's protective for a year. I think it's going to be protected for 2 or 3 years, as a guess, just based on the T cell response.
Okay. The final one I have, and after this, I would ask the cast to turn on their cameras for any further questions. I am fully vaccinated. Is the mask just for show now or what?
Yeah, so I'm fully vaccinated. And when I go, like down to the 4th Street Deli here, which is a few blocks from where I live, I wear a mask. And the reason I wear a mask is that I am worried I would come in contact with a variant. Not the common variant, the B117 variant, because of that, the vaccine should protect me against that. It's the other ones. It's like the New York variant, which is certainly in the area, South African variant, Brazilian variant. That I'm protected against severe critical disease caused by those variants, but I'm less likely to be protected against mild or moderate disease. So until we get on top of this virus, until we get to 80% immunity, we start to see a dramatic decline in cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. And I'm talking about fewer than 50 deaths a day. Then I'll start to feel better. But that's why I wear a mask. And then with that, Tony Fauci appeared before Congress and had that uncomfortable interchange with Senator Rand Paul, who asked the same question. That was his answer. It's the variants.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just a quick question, kids, what's the timeline for the 12 to 16 age group and then for the 11 and under?
Right, so Pfizer's vaccine is approved down to 16 years of age. They just did a trial, they finished it weeks ago, of the 12 to 15-year-old. They submitted for approval through EUA. Yeah, I got a call from a New York Times reporter 2 days ago asking me to comment on the fact that they were just about to approve that, which was 2 days ago. So she thought it was going to happen in a day or so. Obviously, it's close. And Moderna's a few weeks behind. And then I think these vaccines are going to be licensed, actually, instead of just approval through EUA by the end of the summer, because the FDA has basically set the bar at 6 months of effectiveness data for a license.
Great, thanks. Other questions?
A lot of my questions were covered in there. Like, I really wanted to ask, what are you thinking as far as like how long immunity lasts? Like, this was incredibly informative, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, my question is involving that. So there has been some talk of there may be a booster coming up maybe later in the year or 6 months out from when you got it. Is that literally just to like cover our bases to make it a much longer lasting immunoresponse, or is that, what's the science behind that?
Yeah, it was unfortunate that Albert Bourla, who's the CEO of Pfizer, said that he was assuming there was going to be a need for a yearly boost. I don't know where he gets that from. I actually don't think that's likely. So,
okay.
But we'll know. I think we'll know within a year, 2 years, 3 years. We get a sense of what the story is. I would be surprised if we needed a yearly boost.
I was thinking maybe it was just like to cover some more coverage under some of those variants. But
well, if a variant ever crosses the line, and this hasn't happened yet, but what I mean by crosses a line is that it is completely resistant to immunity caused by natural infection or immunization, such that you are just as likely to be hospitalized or be in the ICU or die if you've gotten the vaccine or been naturally infected. If that happens, then you're really not talking about a booster. You're just talking about a second generation vaccine.
And the technology would be similar, right? To isolate the protein from that variant and then create the same mRNA.
Right. Easy to construct, not easy to mass produce, but easy to construct.
Right.
Would that require completely new authorization?
I don't think so. It'll be more like the flu vaccine, where you don't have to do an efficacy trial every year to do that.
So theoretically, this global pandemic has better prepared us in more than any other research we've done in the years between the last big one to deal with future ones. We are much more prepared. Is that fair to say?
We should be. If this hasn't gotten our attention, I don't know where we're going. At the very least, we have to do much better at international surveillance. I mean, we should not have had to depend on a whistleblower in Wuhan to tell us that there was a virus sweeping through that city, killing people. We needed to be alerted to that immediately so that we could start doing all the things you need to do to prepare for that. That was not China acting like a good neighbor.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, although the surveillance and vaccine technology is certainly much better than it was a year plus ago, the public health infrastructure still has some significant challenges. I mean, we've been talking about some of the health disparities and vaccine uptake issues in different communities in some earlier shows. So these are issues to continue to pay close attention to.
Well, significantly smarter.
I do.
Yeah, for sure.
Ready to go out there and create some vaccines now?
Waiting for my make your own vaccine at home kit.
Yeah. One day in the strip malls or the real malls, there'll be a build a vaccine workshop where we'll all be able to do it ourselves.
But it took us 26 years to make ours.
Okay.
I have one.
Rob's got a question.
If you were to guess, when do you think we'll be able to do shows in person?
You know, it's a hard question to answer because the question really is, when do you feel comfortable at a certain level of cases and hospitalizations and deaths? And I don't know that. I mean, influenza, for example, every year, I mean, the year before this virus came, there were 400,000 hospitalizations from influenza and 20,000 deaths. The year before that, there were 700,000 hospitalizations from influenza and 60,000 deaths. If we wore masks over the summer, over the winter, we would dramatically, and tried to social distance, we would dramatically decrease the incidence of flu, which is what happened this year. I mean, there was like no flu this year. All you have to do is just, wear a mask, social distance, shut down schools, shut down the businesses and not travel. See, easy enough. But I mean, in theory, I mean, I'm an Eagles season ticket holder. Rob, I see you're wearing your Eagles hat. So I mean, in theory, I should wear like a mask when I go to the Eagles games, but you can't boo through a mask as easily. I think it's a big problem.
You can still throw snowballs at Santa, though.
Oh, come on. Boo.
Still New York. Sorry.
He's moving to Arizona, so he's bringing it home.
Right, that's right. Mike, what do you think? Wrap it up, or is that it for questions?
Any other questions? No, that's it then.
Oh, thank you. That was great.
Paul, thank you so much.
That was amazing.
Thank you, Paul.
All right,
Paul.
thank you guys. Good luck.
Great to have you here tonight.
All right. Take care.
All right, Mike. Well, we're coming to the end of another show, right?
He's gone now. We're all anti-vax,
Right, roll out the anti-vaxxers. Jenny McCarthy, come on out. Now for our next guest, Joe Rogan, that effing moron.
We have to have both sides represented, right?
That's right.
No, we don't, because there's only one side, the right side.
Next show.
Is next though, right?
What was that, Rob?
The rebuttal show. That's
yeah, we gotta have that.
Just turn on Fox News. And
The stand-up response is next.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to another edition of Study Hall. This very special Facts on the Vax edition. Our next show, going back to our old history and improv format, is the 22nd of May, 7 p.m. That's Saturday night. Come and join us. You can get your Study Hall shirts on sale, right, Mike?
Yep. Yeah, we still have some shirts on sale for Study Hall, as well as Crossroads Comedy Theater, which is Study Hall is now a part of. So you can get a Crossroads Comedy Theater shirt or a Study Hall shirt, or both, in multiple colors. So check those out. Go to xroadscomedy.com or crossroadscomedytheater.com, whichever is easier for you to remember. Yes.
And I think there's another show coming up at 8:30, right? Not yet rated.
You got it. As we showed the preview trailer for at the start of this show, check out Not Yet Rated, an improvised movie. You're going to see who's in there tonight. Fred, Marcelly are going to be in there as well. So if you enjoyed them in this, check them out at 8:30. Get those tickets at xroadscomedy.com as well. And if you can't watch these shows live, we do include the link for you to watch on your own schedule after the live performance. So there's time is not an issue.
Yeah, so if you run into any anti-vax friends this week, just pull this up on your phone and watch Dr. Offit answer all your questions, and then you can set them straight.
And while they're watching, vaccinate them.
Let me bring up this one thing real quick before we fully get out. This is find your closest vaccination location. You can actually text your zip code to 438829, and that will give you a list of the closest vaccination sites to you. I also go to vaccines.gov, which is also pretty great because you can choose the vaccine that you want to get. So if you're like, I heard great things about this Moderna, I want to get that one, you can check Moderna and it will give you a list of the pharmacies or wherever fast food joints, wherever they're giving vaccines out right now.
Can you choose your 5G carrier as well?
Yeah.
It's a multi-tiered form. And then planyourvaccine.com, which does a lot of the same things, just all in one spot for information. So I just want to make sure that we got that information out there. And if we change just one mind tonight, we've done a poor job. We need to do a lot more.
You changed my mind. I'm sad I got the vaccine now.
And we will share this online probably tomorrow as well for people to hopefully change their minds that way. That's all I got. Thanks, everybody. And thanks all people that are watching now or in the future. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Oh boy. Oh boy.